Alright, let's talk about Arash-e Kamangir. You've probably heard his name in Persian poems or seen his story pop up in modern Iranian art. But why is this guy such a big deal? Let's break it down. Arash isn't just some old myth, he's the ultimate symbol of sacrifice and patriotism in Iranian culture. His story goes back thousands of years, rooted in the epic clash between Iran and Turan, an ancient rival kingdom to the east. But here's the kicker. Arash isn't celebrated for winning a war or slaying a monster. His legend is about one arrow, a single act that redefined a nation's borders and cost him everything. So why did this story stick around? Simple, it's relatable. Imagine your homeland is torn apart by war, and the only way to save your people is to give up your own life. That's heavy stuff. Over time, poets and storytellers jazzed up the tale with magical elements, like the Simurgh, a mythical wise bird in Persian lore, gifting Arash a feather to craft his bow. But the core message stayed the same. Selflessness for the greater good. Now here's the twist. Historians argue whether Arash was real, or just a metaphor for collective sacrifice. But honestly, does it matter? His story became a cultural anchor, especially during tough times like the Arab invasion or modern political struggles. When Iranians needed hope, they'd say, "Remember Arash." Why this story? The tale of Arash's final arrow. I've sifted through countless versions of Arash's legend, from Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, to folk songs sung in mountain villages. But the most gripping version? The one where Arash isn't just a hero, he's a man staring down death to buy his people peace. Here's why this version kills it. Epic stakes. The fate of Iran hangs on a single arrow. Mythic vibes. The Simurgh's magic, a bow made of moonlight. Pure drama. Human struggle. Arash's raw fear and resolve make him feel real, not just a marble statue. Ready to dive in? Let's set the scene. The sun hung low, a blood-red orb smeared behind curtains of smoke. For 40 years the lands of Iran and Turan had torn at each other's throats. Once green valleys now bristled with the bones of soldiers. Mothers buried sons. Fathers forgot the faces of their children. The rivers, choked with ash, flowed bitter. Even the wind carried the stench of rot and despair. The kings of Iran and Turan, weary of ruin, agreed to end the war, but not without one final wager. At the banks of the Ceyhan River, the Turanian tyrant Afrasiab, a man with a serpent's grin and a crown of black iron, proposed his terms. Let your greatest archer loose a single arrow. Where it falls, there your border shall lie. But if your archer's arm falters, Iran will be mine. The Iranian nobles trembled. Their greatest warriors lay dead. Their archers' hands shook with age and grief. Despair thickened the air, until a voice cut through the silence. I will shoot the arrow. All turned. There stood Arash, a shepherd from the slopes of Mount Damavand. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollowed by years of hiding his family from Turanian raiders. His bow was simple, his quiver half empty, but his voice did not waver. At dawn, Arash began his climb up Mount Damavand, a snow-capped giant that pierced the heavens. Legend said the mountain was the throne of Divs, ancient demons, and the nest of the Simurgh, a mythical bird whose feathers held the secrets of life and death. For 3 days, Arash climbed. Frost bit his fingers, wolves howled in the shadows. On the 4th morning, as he clung to a ledge, the sky darkened. A tempest of wings shook the mountainside. Down swooped the Simurgh, its plumage blazing like 1,000 emeralds under the sun. Its voice boomed, shaking the stones beneath Arash's feet. Why do you seek me, mortal? Do you not know the price of my gifts? Arash knelt, his breath visible in the freezing air. My people are broken, our children starve. I ask not for strength, but for a chance to end this madness. The Simurgh studied him. Then with a cry that echoed across the peaks, it plucked a single feather from its breast. The feather glowed, its light pooling in Arash's trembling hands. Craft your bow with this, the Simurgh commanded, but when you draw it, your soul will fuse with the arrow. The moment it lands, your body will turn to dust. Arash did not hesitate. Let it be done. By the light of a full moon, Arash carved the feather into a bowstring. As he worked, the feather's magic seeped into the wood of his humble bow. The weapon began to hum, its curve shimmering like liquid silver. Arash felt its power, a cold, searing energy that slithered up his veins. He returned to the Ceyhun River at dawn. Crowds gathered on both banks, Iranians in tattered robes, Turanians in polished armor. Afrasiab sneered, "You send a shepherd to save your empire? How poetic." Arash ignored him. He waded into the river, the water icy against his knees. The Simurgh's bow felt alive in his grip as though it were breathing. He notched an arrow, a simple reed fletched with hawk feathers. "Shoot, beggar," Afrasiab taunted. "Let us see how far your despair can carry you." Arash closed his eyes. He thought of his daughter stolen by Turanian slavers, his wife buried beneath a cedar tree, his village reduced to cinders. His hands tightened. The arrow tore through the air with a sound like thunder cracking the sky. It did not arc, it blazed, trailing a tail of golden light. Farmers in distant fields shielded their eyes. Wolves in the mountains howled. The earth itself seemed to hold its breath. Arash collapsed, his skin turned gray, his hair whitened, yet his eyes stayed locked on the horizon, tracking the arrow's path. For 3 days and 3 nights, the arrow flew. It soared over the Alborz Mountains where eagles circled its glow, the Dashti Kavir, a salt desert where it cast shadows on dunes, the Caspian shores, where fishermen rode after it, thinking it a fallen star. On the morning of the 4th day, the arrow struck a walnut tree on the far eastern edge of the known world. The impact split the tree in two, its roots hissing where the arrow's magic seared the earth. When word reached the Ceyhun, the Turanians recoiled. The arrow had landed 1,000 leagues east, a distance no mortal could fathom. Afrasiab roared, "Sorcery, trickery!" But even his own generals bowed their heads, awed by the arrow's divine path. The Iranians wept. They rushed to Arash, now kneeling in the river shallows. His body crumbled like ash in the current, the last words on his lips, "Plant wheat, where their swords once grew." By sunset, the Simurgh's feather had dissolved. The bow turned to dust, but the border held, a line drawn not by kings but by a shepherd's sacrifice. Centuries passed. The walnut tree became a shrine. Pilgrims tied ribbons to its branches, whispering prayers for courage. Mothers brought their sons to touch its bark and say, "Be like Arash, stand tall, even when the world burns." And on quiet nights, they say the tree still hums, a faint echo of an arrow's flight and a man who chose to die so others might live.